Caid. Tonight's guest is Baroness Thea Northernridge, the chatelaine extraordinaire for ASL users, and featuring a live performance by the Honorable Lady Lucia Laverick from the Kingdom of Antir. Me, I'm your announcer, Master Bjorn of the Northern Sea. And to keep things all equal on this autumnal equinox, your host, Master Laertes McBride.
Good evening and greetings. Thanks for joining us on the autumnal solstice, as I was just pointed out to me by Master Bjorn. I hope you're having a equal day, right? That's what it is. Anyway, only announcement we have really at the top of the show for this week is this Wednesday night, we're going to cross-promote someone. They're having a Fighting the World episode 6 called Unit, and it's actually a online Zoom conference that they're putting together to talk about melee tactics for rapier. And for some odd reason, they've asked me to be one of the panelists. So me and like 5 other people from across the known world will be answering their questions about building rapier units, the sense of camaraderie and tactics and such. So look on Facebook for Fighting the World 6. And it's at 6 p.m. Pacific time. They have it down for 3 hours. I'm not sticking around for 3 hours. But anyway, hopefully you can make it. And that's all I have today. So let's go ahead and bring in Bjorn and see how Bjorn's coming. He'll be here in just a moment. And good evening, Bjorn.
Hello, sir. How are you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing quite well. Thank you very much. Things are not quite as smoky or quite as hot, so I guess we're doing okay.
Right. I mean, everything is a lot less hickory flavored when I breathe right now.
Yes.
So it seems fortunate that the fires that are burning through the Western kingdoms, that the support is there, and that we've been very fortunate, it seems so far, with our SCA family and how they're being impacted. So.
Very true. There have been a couple of people, 1 or 2 folks to the south of us, some Califian folks, more people I've noticed from the west than Antir that have been displaced. But we're of course, as you know, since she was a guest on the show, Mr. Salgetha is in contact with folks in different kingdoms. And so we're just, we're sending out all the well wishes we can that all of their pets and their property will be okay after all this.
All right. Well, on that cheery note, so what do you have for the arts and science highlights for this?
Well, we have less websites this time and more, you might say, digital experiences. Now, I'm going to end up a little serious today, so I'm going to start off with some really interesting and I think fun things, so if you'll bear with me. The first thing I wanted to talk about is the independent Shakespeare Company. Now, this was founded in 1998 in New York City, and it was designed to bring a pared down and you might say raw take on Shakespeare to attempt to remove some of the mystique for modern, or let's be honest, for us, mundane audiences for the Bard, for Shakespeare. And they relocated to Los Angeles in 2001. And over the last 17, 18, 19 years, they have really blossomed since they've come here. They have expanded to become a 501c3 company, much like the SCA. They have a commitment to diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility, much like the SCA. And they have a greater educational bent than when they started. So it definitely seems like an organization that we should patronize. So through the 27th, so starting on Thursday, they are going to be streaming live Thursday through Sunday, starting at 7 p.m. Pacific time, Romeo and Juliet Living Room Edition. So have you ever wanted to live chat with Friar Lawrence? Have you ever wanted to send out a tweet to Prince Aeschylus? Or maybe get in some kind of tete-a-tete with Mercutio through the realms ethereal? Believe it or not, that is something that you might be able to do through this interactive experience that they're going to be doing online. It is designed to create a modern position of Romeo and Juliet, but still utilize the language of Shakespeare that we have all come to know and love. But it is designed also to be just as interactive to us in the 21st century as it was for those people standing in the husks of nutshells at the Globe during the Elizabethan era. It's definitely not our particular brand of anachronism, but I think that for those of you that might want to try something a little bit different, or if you want to have kind of like a gateway drug of choice for one of your friends who isn't quite sure what the speaking forsoothly thing is, then they might want to give it a look. The second thing I wanted to talk about is this comes to us from the Getty. Now, of course, we here in Southern California are somewhat spoiled with the Huntington, the Getty, all of these various museums that we have locale to, even though right now, of course, due to the pandemic, and let's be honest, in a lot of these places, including the Getty, due to the fires, they would most likely be closed, or certainly they would have restricted access in any case. But right now, we have something called Nourishing Genius, Food and Wine in the Time of Michelangelo. So on Sunday, October 4th, see, I'm trying to think ahead. We have something coming up this week, and then this is for the following weekend. So Sunday on October 4th at 2 p.m. Pacific, on the Getty YouTube channel, they're going to have a sort of a gathering of docents and presenters to talk about their currently closed exhibit, which is Michelangelo, Mind of the Master. And how they are doing that is they have various people to talk about the culinary activities that were going on in Michelangelo's life at that time. He owned a vineyard, for example. He owned an orchard. He owned a cheese cave, believe it or not. Food meant a lot to him. And so with the suggestions of various wines and various cheeses and other things to pair with, literally pears. Although I should let you know, when they talk about a San Martino pear, that's the location, San Martino. There's no such thing as a San Martino pear. It'd probably be the Beurre Patel or something. Most likely one of the ones grown in that portion near the Tyrolean Alps, but that's a digression because I'm a culinary guy. Anyway, so by looking at the food that he might have had at that time and looking at how gastronomy with art, with the mind himself, how those all came together to provide insight into the person himself while he was doing what he was doing, you get a chance to look at digital representations of the actual exhibit, even though it's closed. So it's something for you to get a chance to do. Also, there will be live chatting with the presenters themselves. So it's something that you can do from the comfort of your own home while getting a glass of wine and some cheese, some bread and a pear, and just looking at some of the beauteous things of the Renaissance. And to close out, I wanted to talk about today. While today is not the summer solstice, there are people who feel that this might be one of the longest days ever. And the reason why I bring that up is because today is the 21st of September, which is known as World Alzheimer's Day, otherwise known as Alzheimer's Action Day. For those of us who study history and study what history does for us, in the SCA, that's our memories, or the memories of those that came before us. And therefore, one of the most important things is keeping that memory and keeping it alive. So Alzheimer's and dementia is the anathema to that, is counterintuitive to all the things that we usually hold dear. That is the removal of those things. One person in particular that means a lot to me was my father. The Reverend Marcus Barber was someone who, as you see in this picture here, enjoyed going to the SCA events dressed in his clergy tartan, showing people 1/3 his age how to properly toss a caber. And although he was definitely Bjorn-sized, he was as gentle a giant as you would ever meet. Although that picture with him next to Sir Thomas of Aylesbury is not to scale. Thomas is actually a good-sized Meridian lad. But even though he's been gone for 5 years, he's actually been gone for longer. And that's because Alzheimer's has a tendency to take the things that make people what they are, their memories, their knowledge, the things that make them what they are to us, and they take us away from them. It's important that on these days you go to places like alz.org or other areas that you can find locally or in your state, and see if there's possible donations you could do. I know things are tight right now, or perhaps just some kind of time that you could give, because this is something that currently 5 million Americans are affected with right now, and I would say suffering with. And they say that it's only going to get more and more for reasons we don't really quite understand. So I want to thank you all very much for taking the time for this somewhat somber end to this, because this guy, well, my dad means everything to me. He's the guy that was my first fencing instructor, my first voice teacher. He spoke more languages than he had kids, and he had 6 of us. So he's a very brilliant man. And to see that Alzheimer's can take someone that sharp and that brilliant and take those things from him and from his family, well, it's something we want to try and do everything we can, all of us, to rectify. But at any rate, I want to thank you all very much for your time with this mostly personal portion of the show, and I appreciate it very much. So thank you.
Thank you, Bjorn, for that. I would think your dad would be very proud of the legacy from him that lives on in you, and the examples that you set.
He loved Caid. He had been here several times. He was a Vietnam vet, so he and Master Bryce out in Drybergen, they used to drink. They used to commiserate whenever he would come visit, and we still drink in my father's honor every Great Western Wars. And even though that was postponed this year, the drinking will continue in my father's honor and in the honor of so many others who've also fallen prey to this disease.
Right. Yeah. I have an aunt that's in Oklahoma that's suffering through the same disease. So, thank you. And now, as a complete tangent, who do we have for our first guest this evening?
Her Excellency Thea Northernridge. She is someone that we're exceptionally fortunate to have with us. She is the chatelaine for ASL, for the demonstrative art, you might say, for sign language. And she's, well, I mean, honestly, Thea does so many things for Caid. This is just one of them, but I think this is perhaps one of the most important, since we just talked about access and inclusion and the ability to help those who are hearing impaired participate in court. This is something that is truly a wondrous gift to give to people.
All right. Well, we'll put you away, and we're going to see you in just a little bit. Don't forget. So.
Oh yes.
And let's welcome her to the show. So she'll be here in just right about now. Hold on, don't forget, I got to do this. And there we go. Hello.
Hi.
Oh my gosh, how are you?
I'm well. How are you doing?
Well, we're good. We're really good. I mean, considering everything else that's going on. I really appreciate you coming on today to talk about the silent heraldry position in the SCA, and maybe even give us a little idea on ASL and how it evolved and its place in how in society and what you do and what your background is. I mean, that's a tall order for our first question. So let's just talk about silent heraldry in the SCA first. So how did you get involved, and how did you get the position you're in?
Well, to be honest, I was the first silent herald in the society. And back in the early 80s, I was attending Cal State Northridge. And I had a focus on, I was majoring in communicative disorders, so I had a focus on becoming a speech language pathologist. But I really wanted to work with the deaf and hard of hearing population. While I was growing up, there was a kid down the street who was hearing impaired, and he signed. And I thought it was cool that he signed. And that's where I learned was from that kid. And I'm also a coda. I'm a child of a deaf adult. My father is hearing impaired. Although he's oral, he doesn't sign. We tease him that he may have a hearing loss. He just wanted to be a pain in the neck. So I started in the SCA when I was a freshman in college. And by the time I was in like my sophomore, junior year in college, I had deaf friends at school, and they were wondering about, what's that thing you do on the weekend? Like, you dress up, and what is that? And I said, well, come with me, and I'll show you. And of course, we went to an event in what was then Sarnwald, which has now become the Barony of Altavia. And that's when I interpreted my first court, because my friend was like, what's going on? What's going on? And I was like, I'm just going to sit in front of you and I'll just sign all of this. And at the same time at school, I was also going through the interpreter training program at Cal State Northridge. So I was training to become a professional interpreter anyway. So I thought, well, this looks like a great opportunity to practice.
Wow. So it's been part of your life for a long time.
Yes, yes. And Master Bruce Draconarius and Mistress Aster Christiana Benedict are personal, dear, dear friends. And at the time, Bruce was Crescent Herald. And I went to him and I said, I'm doing this thing because it seems like I'm doing it a lot. And I don't know, what do you think? Should we start like a guild or something? Because people seem interested. And should I like develop a badge or something? And he was like, that's a good idea. Let's work on it. And he actually coined the term silent heraldry, because I didn't really know where I would fit in the structure of the SCA as an interpreter. And Bruce was like, well, clearly you're a herald, you're just silent. And we came up with the badge of the hand and the crossed trumpets, which now you see all over the society. There are silent heralds now, I think, in just about every kingdom.
Wow. And is there at the society level, is there like a main person for silent heraldry?
There is. It's just changed over, so I'm not sure who's the person. What I can talk about, though, is here in Caid, I'm the main contact, but my, no pun intended, right-hand man is Nico Festos,
Nico's
who's also a professional interpreter.
Yeah, he's what a great guy. And I know that we see him or you up in court interpreting for people. And so if people were interested in becoming a silent herald, what would the process be?
Well, becoming a sign language interpreter is really kind of a long, drawn-out process. ASL, American Sign Language, is not necessarily easy to learn. I can remember in college when I was going through my ASL program, I would often tutor other hearing people who were in their ASL classes. And there were some folks where it just seemed like their poor hearing brains could not process a visual language. Some folks I was like, go take Spanish, German, Japanese. I don't think ASL's for you. But, it takes many years to become proficient. There are not a lot of hearing people who can just pick it up as adults and become proficient enough to be an interpreter. That being said, anyone can be an ambassador. And we do have folks all through the society who have varying levels of hearing loss. And there are people with hearing loss who don't use American Sign Language. There are many folks who will just rely on someone just like me, talking clearly. And other things that folks can do, if you encounter someone at an event and you can see that clearly there's some kind of communication issue, whip out the old handy dandy cell phone, because you can go to your message function, you can type in a message, and then you can just show that. And the person can read it and they can type back to you. And you can have clear communication with no problem. I'd also like to encourage people to use just facial expression. There's so much with nonverbal human communication that everybody understands. You don't have to be a sign language interpreter to employ that.
And well, you don't want to see me. Hold on. There we go. And I believe Mistress Meliora is going through the process of being certified also.
She is indeed.
So now in the SCA, let's say for signing like the kingdoms or terminology that is very specific to the SCA, is that a challenge, or how do you handle that?
It can be. There is a database somewhere out there. I'm not positive where. There is a database of all the kingdom name signs, because people and places get name signs. Like my name sign in my everyday life is this. This was the one I grew up with. It's just easier than finger spelling my whole name. And so locations also get name signs. And so my sign for Caid has been this, although I know that some people use something else. There's been another one I've seen, sort of like C's or some, I don't know, something. At any rate, I use the old one that I use because one of my deaf friends gave it to me. I said to her, what should we call this place? You know, the name Kingdom, CAID. What do we call that? I mean, name sign. I'm tired of finger spelling, CAID. And she signed back to me, well, country, Caid. I'm like, great, okay, and we just ran with that. So name signs are a thing, and typically they're given by a person with a hearing impairment or an ASL user. And we've come up with name signs, you know, because after a point, you know, you'll be interpreting for someone, and if you're in the barony of blah 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 land, you're not going to want to be finger spelling that all the time. And so that can be a challenge. Kings and queens tend to get name signs, again, just for the ease of saving your fingers.
Right. And then, okay, so in ASL in general, just I've always wondered this too. Spoken language, there's dialects, right? There's West Coast, South, whatever. Do you find there are dialects when interpreting in ASL?
Absolutely. Absolutely. One example, like here in Southern California, we sign white. But you go back east to like Pennsylvania or New York, and they sign white. Now I'm starting to see this for when someone is white, like complected, as opposed to the color white. It's very interesting. What's really fascinating, I live in San Diego, and so we're right on the border. And so the sign for Mexico, as I was growing up, was always this. Now we're starting to see this for the sign for Mexico, because in Mexican Sign Language, that's the sign for Mexico.
Oh.
And so we're now seeing a kind of a little influence over the border of people picking this up of, well, that's their sign, we should be using it. And so it's catching on.
So like in the South, we say y'all a lot, right? And you know, if you go to New Jersey, it's yous guys. So would it be the similar sign, or would it be more reflective of where they were at?
It's interesting. You know, it has so much to do with how long there's been a deaf community in that area, how well established it is, and how much of an influence it had. Growing up, I always signed birthday like this, birthday. This is the ASL sign for birthday. And then I went to go work in San Bernardino with a program for the hearing impaired. And people were like, oh, no, it's birthday or birthday. And that's we call that a very English sign. And I was like, okay, fine, whatever, you know. Then I moved to San Diego, and I saw someone and went to wish them a happy birthday, you know, happy birthday. And they were like, what's wrong with you, lady? So it's always an interesting learning curve to figure out what we're doing and what we're saying and how we're saying it.
That's very, very cool. Yeah, this is about the time I turn it over to Bjorn for Bjorn to have a question for you. Bjorn, do you have a question?
I do. So during the process of creating place names, you said that they are normally given by someone who is hearing impaired. For our current situation where we are online, and so Nico a lot lately, very kindly, has been the silent herald for Caid and courts, but because that kind of crosses all sorts of interkingdom lines and could be seen around the world, how do we ascribe place names or that have been given if people are watching it, but the hearing impaired people don't actually live there?
That's a really tough one. And in this current setting with this pandemic, we're kind of stuck. I mean, to be very honest, if I were sitting in the interpreter's seat, sometimes I'll just be like finger spelling, and then I'll just look at the client and go, we're going to call this. Good. Good, great. Okay, moving on. Because as a practical matter, doing a whole lot of finger spelling is really hard on the interpreter, and it's not so easy on the person watching. Watching a lot of finger spelling is very draining. Watching a lot, taking in information visually and processing it is really a lot more labor intensive than just listening. It's not like our ears have ear lids. They don't ever shut down, and we've been getting auditory stimulation since we were 7 months in utero. For folks who are learning ASL, even if they learned it as babies and grew up in a signing household, there still comes a point where it's like, I can only just watch so much and my eyes fatigue. So, we want to make it as easy on the consumer as well as on the interpreter.
The last question I have is for, and obviously, they've even made tropes and jokes about it on television programs about the superimposed oval in the lower right-hand corner. I've even seen that done at a couple of Kingdom events where they've made like a plywood oval that the silent herald kind of stood next to or kneeled in, for the purposes of folks kind of directing their attention there. But really, there's only so far back that you can sign, and especially when you're finger spelling that people can read it. Really, how far back, provided there's no necessary need for like corrective lenses, is finger spelling useful really to convey information?
Usually we reserve the front row of seats for any of our sign language consumers, so they're going to be seated kind of up close and personal. I've also been a stage interpreter for the Renaissance Pleasure Fair, and to be honest, at fair I'm more of a distance from my consumer than I am, say, at an SCA court. And so I'd say, good 10-15 feet, they can still see. So I also I have like a tabard that I wear that's blue, or at fair I have a tabard that's green, and my hands contrast against that really nicely. So it's pretty legible.
Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
So one of our viewers tonight has pointed out that Ethelmark has a YouTube channel where they do a sign a day. So you can go out on YouTube and learn something new every day.
Well, and you can also go to gallaudet.edu, GALLAUDET.edu. It's a university in Washington, D.C. It's a deaf university for all intents and purposes, and they're the leaders in ASL sign development and research. And you can also go, and they have lots and lots and lots of live video signed resources that you can learn all sorts of things.
Oh, that's great. So speaking of learning some signs, we talked a little bit before the show. Instead of our regular trivia game this evening, I thought it'd be more interesting, per se, if you were to, let's bring Bjorn in as a matter of fact. If we'll do it this way. If you were to teach Bjorn and I some signs, and people at home that are watching could also kind of learn along with us. So would you be up for that?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
So what would you like us to learn?
I think one thing that's important is to be able to say welcome.
Okay.
And so we're going to take our right hand. If are you guys right-handed?
I am.
I'm ambidextrous.
Okay.
Doesn't matter.
Right hand and welcome. And it's going to come in. Let me sit back a little farther. I've been doing this all day with my Zoom calls with my students. Welcome. Welcome. There you go. Welcome. And you might want to say thank you to someone. And you could say thank you, which is also the sign for good. Interestingly, it depends on your context of how you're using it. Thank you. And if you're really thankful, you could be like, thank you. You can really emphasize it. And that carries a lot more meaning with it. And even with the facial expression is important. You can be like, thank you. Or you could be totally like, thank you. You saved my bacon. So facial expression, it has a lot. When I was going through school in the 80s and all the silent heraldry stuff started up, that was when the "oh my God, gag me with a spoon" thing was popular. Mm-hmm. And you don't know how many times I've had people going, could you please sign that? So to put your minds at rest, oh my God, gag me with a spoon. Valley Girl, 1980s. What can I say?
So how would you sign Vivat?
How would I sign what?
Vivat. Vivat.
Vivat.
Yeah.
Vivat. So I sign celebration. We also do in Caid, we also do huzzah, or,
Mhm.
and so we go 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. So it's coming in 1, 2, 3. There you go. Yes.
Very cool.
There you go. You're ready for court.
And let's see, what would be one more? Oh, again, what's Caid? How would you do Caid?
Caid.
So,
Oh, I know one thing that's really good. Deaf people don't applaud like this because, like, what would be the point? You can't hear it. Deaf people applaud like this.
right.
That's deaf applause, kind of jazz hands.
Nice.
So there you go.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, this is fantastic. I look forward to seeing more of the service that you provide, along with Nico and the other members that are doing silent heraldry. I think it's a fantastic access for everyone to open up the SCA to. And the years of dedication and knowledge that you've put in for it. How long have you been in the position you were telling me?
Oh my goodness. I finally got, actually, when Cormac Moore was Crescent Herald, he actually gave me a heraldic designation of Beaumont Herald, which means good hands herald.
Oh yeah.
I feel like Allstate. And let's see, I guess I became the Chatelaine Extraordinary probably around 1984. So 26 many years. Yeah. Good thing I started at the age of 2, right?
That'd be 36 years, but we're not counting. So.
Oh, snap. Okay. See what I'm talking about.
But thank you very much for coming on the show, giving us some background, and showing us some gestures. I really do appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you. Thank you again. All right.
Have a great evening, and we'll see you soon, hopefully.
Later.
Thank you very much. Good night. Wow, that was cool. So
I truly appreciate what the Silent Heralds do, simply because it's just wonderful to see people that don't normally get a chance to, because lip reading, especially if you have a herald that's kind of got their nose in the book and they're slaughtering some Celtic name, it's not necessarily that easy to lip read that sort of thing.
right.
So to have a silent herald assist the hearing impaired to participate in that aspect, to celebrate the recognition of peoples in the populace, I think that's just another way that we are able to be more accessible now than we were in the past. Although, to be fair, Thea's been doing this for quite some time, and I think others have sort of come along she's led by example.
Right. I just realized I should have asked her how to sign Sandy Wasteland so I could do Aidenville. Anyway, so who's our next guest this evening?
We have all the way from the shining kingdom of Antir, the Honorable Lady Lucia Laverick, who's going to be joining us, a charming young lady, a wonderful bard.
Oh, great. Well, thank you, Bjorn, and we'll see you again here shortly. Let's bring her on the show, and she'll be here right about now. Hold on, I got to hit this button. Otherwise, someone gets to mark off a square on the bingo card. Hello.
Hello.
So thank you for joining us. You're joining us from Antir in Modern. Where in Antir are you?
I am in the Barony of Seagirt, which is Victoria, BC, an island in the Pacific, just kind of north of Seattle.
Oh, it's like a 3-hour tour from Seattle. So thank you so much for joining us. Highly recommended for the pieces that you perform. How long have you been in the SA?
So I was invited by someone in my youth group when I was 16 to this camping event, but I had to wear this outfit. And I showed up, and they had behind these trees in a field, they were supposed to be doing fighting or something. I don't know, because someone was teaching a class on recorders, and this was the coolest thing ever. And so I went and took the recording class and missed the entire war. And then that night I went to the Bardic fire and I danced and sang around the fire, but I didn't have any songs. So I just wrote songs based on the books I had been reading, where they had little fun medieval-esque songs in some unicorn book I was reading. I was like, I'll just put that to music. It'll be fine. And that was pretty much my first event. And then I didn't know it was a real thing. I thought it was just a one-time event. And then my very dear friend, Ethelina, invited me back 4 years later in college. She's like, it's real? I can do this all the time? Every weekend? Sign me up.
So I think Ethelina's watching. She just says hello, by the way. So you wrote songs at your very first event and performed them.
Yes.
That's fantastic. Oh my gosh.
It was
So
very
you've been
fun.
kind of just writing ever since as you've been in performing?
Pretty much. I actually hosted, I jumped in just at the time where this amazing bard, Aria de Leon, was hosting Bardics all the time in our group. And then Caid took over, and then I took over, and then I held Bardic of 3 to 23 people every single week for like 5 to 8 years or something like that. I don't know. Like, it's all a blur of music and merriment.
Oh, that's fantastic. So you're going to perform some songs for us tonight. Are they original compositions that you?
I am going to be performing 2 original compositions. I was figuring out which ones I wanted to perform even up till now, but 2 of them are based off of songs I'd actually written very recently, both in honor of members of my principality and kingdom who have passed. And I know that they did not pass from what we are celebrating and talking about in the show, but they are in honor of absent friends, one of which is in honor of just all absent friends in the society. We have in Ontario, every year we have a riderless horse ceremony where someone leads a horse that is bedecked in Ontarian colors with no rider in honor of absent friends. And the second song I'll be performing is a song I wrote for Master of Defense. So it's all about fencing and being a fencer. And there's not enough songs about fencers. And so when my dear friend passed, I decided it had to happen. And I wrote a song like that weekend.
Okay, well, I look forward to your performances. Thank you very much. And the floor is yours.
Fabulous. So I was debating between which one I would start first. And I thought if I start on the sadder one first, then I can go out with a bang on the fencing one second. Flipped around last second. This is in dedication to my friend, Lord Topher. And it is called The Riderless Horse. Okay. So I just wrote this one the other day while my daughter was napping. And I was trapped underneath her. So what else are you going to do but write a new song? Okay. And this is, you guys are my first audience for this song. So I hope you enjoy. The sun is hot and beating high. The afternoon's a clear, bright sky. And I've heard the court might actually start on time. So I gather up my folk, pick up my chair and don my cloak, grab a worn-out kerchief past its prime. The procession's near an end, and I think on absent friends, those who used to sit and laugh with me at court. There's a silence in the crowd when their names are read aloud. For a moment, I am lost and out of sort. But their memories remain, and my love will never change when they walk on by the riderless horse. There was a camp for 2 I'd known, now only one banner is flown, and a new and daunting life has just begun. A few have fallen on the way, but as I'm standing here today, they'll stay with me in each new battle won. And the procession's near an end, and I think on absent friends, those who used to sit and laugh with me at court. There's a silence in the crowd when their names are read aloud. For a moment I am lost and out of sort, but their memories remain, and my love will never change when they walk on by, riderless horse. Yes, they have made their final bow, and we must carry on somehow, as I have done and so many before. But to honor those who part, just keep a small place in your heart, and know they wait for you upon that distant shore. The procession's near an end, and I think on absent friends, those who used to sit and laugh with me at court. There's a silence in the crowd when their names are read aloud. For a moment I am lost and out of sort, but their memories remain, and my love will never change when they walk on by, a riderless horse. Yes, their memories remain, and my love will never change when they walk on by, a riderless horse. Thank you. Thank you so much. Should I jump right into the second one?
Yeah, let's keep it going.
Okay, this one is in honor of my dear friend, Master Ewan Hoowood, a Master of Defense in all of the awesomeness. And I've known that a lot of Masters of Defense are very tall. And this one in particular, he always wore this red hat, and it had thousands of little red finger tufts that was very fluffy, and it is a hat called a thrum. And so in the song, there is a red thrum on my brow, which is the line I dedicated in honor of him. So this one is called The Heart to Defend. I was born by the sea, I was raised by mountain men, and I live by the blade in my hand. On my honor and my word, I would swear upon my sword that I have the strength, that I have the will, that I have the heart to defend. I am known among my kin as a worthy friend and foe, and I know they'll stand beside me till the end. I keep that promise with me, so I never fight alone, for I have the strength to defend. I was born by the sea, I was raised by mountain men, and I live by the blade in my hand. On my honor and my word, I would swear upon my sword that I have the strength, that I have the will, that I have the heart to defend. So they say I'm large as life, I'm still lighter on my feet, and I'm more than just a giant among men. No, my mind will never waver under pressure or the heat, for I have the will to defend. I was born by the sea, I was raised by mountain men, and I live by the blade in my hand. On my honor and my word, I would swear upon my sword that I have the strength, that I have the will, that I have the heart to defend. There's a token on my belt, there's a red thrum on my brow, and a smile for my one true love and friends. And though I may meet my death, I will make that final bow, for I have the heart to defend. I was born by the sea, I was raised by mountain men, and I live by the blade in my hand. On my honor and my word, I would swear upon my sword that I have the strength, that I have the will, that I have the heart to defend, that I have the strength, that I have the will, that I have the heart to defend.
Huzzah. Well done.
That was fantastic. It's like Belle and Ariel came and performed on the show this evening.
It's hard. I have definitely referred to as, oh, Jazz. She's got one of those Disney voices.
Oh, that's not a bad thing. It's fantastic. You know, the Magic Kingdom lives in our kingdom. So, but that was
The Magic Kingdom lives like a mile and a half from my house.
I've always wanted to go. It's a dream. Like after COVID, my husband and I are like, let's go. Let's go.
Well, you can crash up Bjorn's house. It'd be perfect.
I can.
I'm right there.
Yeah.
But that was so amazing. Thank you so much for sharing your original compositions. And as Bjorn mentioned in the comments, it's I can't imagine how tough it is to perform to a piece of glass when you're used to around a campfire with your friends, with an audience, and here you're looking at a piece of glass. So
it is hard. I do love all of the stages of Bardic. I've written like papers on every moment that you can find in Bardic and what people look for in Bardic and how to bard. I do a course, how to get over stage fright through anger, which is a fun course where every person sits in a circle and they have all of these easy filks that they can perform. And it's, you go immediately to the next person, but everyone starts talking. So as soon as the one performer stops, they sit down and everyone starts talking. And the next performer has to stand up and start singing during the talking. And so it's very fun.
That's like every Pelican meeting I've ever been to. And so one last thing is, if people want more of your performances and stuff, do you have a website that they can
Absolutely. Shameless plug. My last name, Laverick. It's like Maverick with an L. www.laverick.ca. It goes straight to my Patreon, and that has lots of songs. I have a YouTube channel, which I could post at some point, and there will be links in the... There we go. Yeah.
Well, fantastic. Thank you again for joining us today and sharing your talent and the passion that you have. It was fantastic. And I hope you have a great rest of your day. And hopefully someday you will make that dream vacation, make it down here to Disney, and we will welcome you with open arms, and hopefully we can get together. Give us a heads up.
Absolutely. Thank you, Your Ladyship.
All righty. Have a great rest of your evening.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye. Wow. She was great.
She really was. And I keep forgetting now as I age what energy looks like. And it's it's like, wow, that's what animation is. I get it. I knew that once. Sometime, maybe.
Long ago and far away.
Mm-hmm.
But, well, that's pretty much our show for the evening. One last thing I want to do is talk about who's here next week. Next week, we'll be talking to the SCA social media officer. That's Baroness Andy Tournay, and she will be joining us from Laverick. So we'll have to put some shrimp on the Barbie.
That's going to be an interesting time change, I have to say. Yes.
I know, it'll be Tuesday morning for her. So.
Oh, wow. And then, of course, our Bardic performer is going to be my Lord Brandywine, the Nubian Bard of Altavia, who's going to be presenting for us a digital Bardic representation. One of the new things that's being done now is people who are really good performers on several different instruments, recording themselves doing them and then putting them all together on one recording. And that's something that he's going to be doing for us for some Renaissance pieces. And so we're really excited to have him do that for us.
Yeah, it'll be a visual representation of what it's like to be inside my head. Anyway, So thank you once again, Bjorn, for joining us this evening. It's great to see you. My friend.
Hold on a second. I almost forgot. I want to thank you
we
very
need
much.
to pick
for
up
the gift I got.
beverage, don't we? Oh, that's delicious.
Oh, so good to have margaritas and coffee cups.
Have a great evening, my friend. We'll see you next week.
You do the same.
And everyone else, we'll see you next week when once again we'll be live from Caid. We'll see you then.